Welcome to Wild Side, your wild true crime podcast.
We're your hosts, who are sisters, storytellers, and truth seekers.
I'm Bailey, a therapist who is fascinated by all weird and dark human behaviors.
And I'm Chelsea, an educator here to unearth the facts behind the cases.
We cover true crime because some cases are just too dark to forget,
and others are too wild to ignore.
We're so glad you're here, so buckle up
and enjoy the ride. Happy Wednesday. Happy Hero Wednesday.
Yeah, I am sick. I'm pretty sure I have the flu.
You probably do.
Because I had chills.
Were they multiplying?
Night. Yes.
Losing control?
Yes. And so if I sound weird, sorry guys. I'll have to just cut it out for whenever I start hacking, coughing.
It's the worst. I know that nobody likes being sick. I really hate being sick. Like, it aggravates me to be sick.
Yeah.
It's aggravating. Like, I don't enjoy any part of being sick. I don't like the attention. I don't want anybody to talk to me. I don't want you to look at me. I don't want you to bring me food. Like, no offense. I'm sorry, but seriously, I don't ever want you to visit me if I'm sick.
Yeah. Well, you guys are going to be sick of this dude at the end of this episode. So, as a disclaimer, this episode's probably going to take us a full hour. And I am telling you that is a 10th of the information we could fit into an episode.
It really is. And here's the deal. Like, if we went through it and just gave you information, then yeah, we could fill you up with a whole bunch of information. But guys, here's the deal. Like, we have some valuable things to say about this guy. And we think that you guys deserve our little nuggets of information on our opinions that really, really matter. So you're welcome.
So I'm going to link an awesome documentary at the end of this. I'm not going to say the name of it because it's going to give away kind of what this is about.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to link a documentary, and the documentary itself is an hour and a half long, and it's a lot. And there's a lot of stuff in there. And this is probably, I know we say this a lot, but this is in my top 5 wildest cases I've ever heard of.
Yeah, I mean, it's, yeah, yep. I kind of agree and disagree, just because, unfortunately, I think people like this are more common than we think they are. And that in itself is kind of wild.
Yeah, but serial killers are too, but that's wild still. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Anyways. All right. Well, we're just going to jump into it. And you guys are going to have to buckle up for this because there's a lot. There's a whole lot here. Okay. After September 11th, America was desperate for certainty, for a little bit of control, because we had just lost a lot of control. We wanted someone or anyone who sounded like they knew what they were doing. And that's where heroes, arguably throughout history, get invented. And not necessarily the real heroes, but people who perform heroism. People who claim access to secret knowledge, elite training, and classified missions. And once someone convinces themselves that they're on the, quote, right side, then they stop feeling like they need rules in order to do all of the heroic things that they want to do. Instead, rules start feeling like obstacles that were meant for everyone else. This is the case of a very small man with a very big temper and a very big ego. The kind of guy who couldn't stand being told no, who hated authority but desperately wanted it. And he didn't bend the truth, he built literally his entire persona and a career on bending the truth. He conned his way into rooms he never should have been in. War zones, government conversations, media circles. And if anyone did anything he didn't like, well, he'd sue them. All of them. Journalists, former friends, even his own family. Because that's how this guy worked. by intimidation, manipulation, and lots of bravado. This is the super wild case of Jonathan Keith Idema, a man who wanted to be important so badly, he literally put himself in the middle of war to do so.
So who is Jonathan Keith Idema? Well, first of all, we're going to start by saying that he went by Keith Idema in the beginning. Before the headlines and before all the public attention, before his name became widely known, he was already shaping how others saw him and how much they questioned him. To understand that pattern, we really need to go back to the beginning. Jonathan Keith Idema was born in 1956 in upstate New York and spent his childhood in Poughkeepsie, New York, as an only child. Nothing in the early records suggests instability or hardship. Teachers, neighbors, and later biographers described a childhood that followed a familiar American pattern. School, family routines, just ordinary dude, right? And there's not really a single event that marked him as exceptional or dangerous or destined for any notoriety. On paper, at least. His early life offered no obvious clues about where he would actually end up. He was just a dude, right? Living in upstate New York. According to multiple accounts, there was one thing that influenced him. And it happened when he was around 12 years old, and he watched the movie, The Green Berets. And this is a Vietnam-era war movie starring John Wayne, and Idema reportedly watched the movie repeatedly and became so deeply and hyper-fixated on its portrayal of military heroism that it altered his life, right? It was that impactful. Around the time, he abandoned an earlier plan to become a veterinarian and began orienting his ambition towards the military with special fixation on the special forces. The appeal was not general service or enlistment, but the image of elite status and authority presented on screen, right? So he didn't just want to serve his country, he wanted to specifically be a Green Beret. So after graduating high school in 1974 and shortly after turning 18, Idema enlisted in the U.S. military there in 1975, near the end of the American involvement in Vietnam. His decision followed a family precedent. His father had served as a Marine during World War II, but by that point, Idema had already begun shaping a version of himself rooted in military identity, one that emphasized discipline, hierarchy, and personal command. It was the first step in a pattern that would later define how he presented himself and how others really would struggle to separate fact from self-created narrative. Weirdly enough, though, here's where the hero narrative begins to crack. So Keith didn't go on to see any combat or be in any missions, but rather ended up serving in an Army Special Force unit and completing specialty training. His military record reflected qualifications as a pistol expert, and he earned badges for scuba diving and parachute training, which, that's kind of a flex. That does sound a little impressive until you read the evaluations attached to those same files. But despite the Special Forces label, it seems Keith wasn't exactly beloved by peers or by his chain of command. Almost immediately after joining the Army, Keith started having issues. In fact, he had a lot of instances of misconduct between 1976 to 1977, including disobeying orders, neglecting duties, and disrespecting superiors. So, I think the guy obviously just didn't like being told what to do, ever. I get it. I don't like being told what to do, but I don't know. Why do you join something where you know you're going to have to do stuff.
Right. When that's your whole dream is to be elite, then you obviously have to be really good at following orders.
You do. One evaluator described him as, quote, the most unmotivated, unprofessional, immature enlisted man I've ever seen, end quote. I mean, that's a big statement. And I bet this guy's seen quite a few people. A letter of reprimand cited Idema's, quote, gross immaturity characterized by irrationality and a tendency towards violence. That reprimand came after Idema allegedly attempted to physically attack a senior commanding officer. I mean, it's not the kind of record that influenced Bonnie Tyler's I Need a Hero, if you ask me.
I need a hero.
And he's gotta be fast, and he's gotta be something. And he's gotta be fit for the fight. Or larger than life. He thought he was larger than life. He did.
This man thought he was larger than life. And it's safe to say that so far, homeboy Keith isn't just like, the guy's got a bad attitude. This is obviously a pattern that is developing. He is proving to be impulsive, aggressive, and strangely undisciplined, even though he's in the heart of like disciplined country. You know what I mean? Not obviously makings of a hero. And because of all of this, Keith Idema lasted only about 3 years on active duty. He served his term, and when it came time to essentially re-enlist and keep going, the military was like, no thank you. Like, you're not allowed back in. He did leave with an honorable discharge, but his military records painted a rather dull and mediocre picture of this guy, Keith. He was a man who served one term, no combat history, negative evaluations, and again, the denial of reenlistment, likely tied to he was obnoxious, he didn't perform well, and he had discipline issues. Obviously not cut out for active duty, Idema then transitions into the Army Reserves. Here, he serves with the 11th Special Forces Group in a logistical support role. But the same behavioral issues followed him here too. He had many reprimands and again was quoted for non-cooperation, disregard for authority, and gross immaturity. By 1981, he's relieved of his duties in the reserves, and his final position listed as Assistant Sergeant of Operations and Intelligence. He remained in the Individual Ready Reserve Unit until his final discharge in 1984. So by the time he was finally washed out of the military, so to say, Keith did not leave with the medals, the badass war stories, or a hero send-off like he had always hoped or envisioned that he would. Instead, Keith Idema left as the same nobody who went in. Not exactly the hero arc we were all hoping for, right? But Keith's desperation and obsession with being the hero didn't fizzle out with his Army career. It just forced him to recalibrate. Slowly, Keith Idema starts building a new version of himself. Not the super mediocre guy that he actually was, but a much more impressive version.
And I just want to interject. You know, this guy was young, and I get it. I had dreams of doing a lot of stuff, and right out of high school, you know, I go to college and you try out for different things, right? I was going to be like this elite dancer, and then like didn't even make the cut, like the first round cut in college. And I was just like, what? And then I remember like rushing like my sophomore year of college when you rush as a freshman, and I didn't get like any callbacks to any of these sororities. And I was just like, I'm such a loser. So I get it, right? Like, you have big dreams or you have some sort of ambition, and then they're pretty much like, no, that's not going to work out. But I pivoted. Like, I was like, okay, that's fine. I'll go somewhere else.
And most normal humans learn to pivot. They
Correct.
say, like, when I was a freshman in college, I was going to be a doctor. Well, I failed chemistry. Okay, which literally straight out of the gate, it ruined my chances of going to med school. And of course, in the whole grander scheme of things, it was a blessing in disguise, yada yada. But for homeboy Keith, he absolutely did not learn to pivot. He just went 10 toes down.
He really did. I mean, he just was like, thank you for the no. I'll let myself in. And they're like, no, we're saying no. Like, you may not. And he's just like, no, it's okay. I've already made a pathway and I'm just going to stick on this. And,
for sure.
You know, this is where Keith Idema stops being a man with a rough paper trail and he starts becoming a man with a carefully curated backstory. After the Army, he didn't drift back to New York and settle into anonymity. He started talking. Right? He started talking a lot. And the stories had a way of growing more polished each time they were told. I mean, these stories were just like, they were long on confidence, short on anything that could be easily checked, right? When the subject came up, Idema would describe himself as a veteran of elite service, 12 years in special forces, 22 years of combat training, and 18 years spent on covert operations, right? Like, he was that guy in all of his stories. He spoke out about working as a U.S. military advisor in Central America, naming places like El Salvador and Honduras, and claiming time with this American special mission unit. These were the kinds of claims that landed in this really, it's kind of this untouchable sweet spot, meaning it was specific enough to sound very credible, but vague enough to deflect scrutiny and set in regions where Americans already suspected that there were secret wars being fought. And so, I don't know. I think that nobody could really prove it, right? You know, because if you were like, prove it, how do you prove that stuff, right? So those claims had never been publicly substantiated by official records. And at the time, nobody really challenged him because, again, how could you do that? If the guy tells you that he was a mechanic in Poughkeepsie, New York, you can verify that. Right? Like, there's an address, you have a boss, there are people in the town, they're like, yeah, I've taken my car to him, you know? But if he's telling you that he's doing like this undercover special work overseas and, you know, he's maybe doing classified work and he has that jargon and that sense about him, the kind of, you know, like, oh, I can't really talk about this. And there's no paperwork that you can access, and there's really nothing that and you have to also remember, this is kind of before you can really dive deep into the internet. And so, I mean, ultimately, there's no way to prove it or disprove it. And in a world like that, Keith Idema didn't need documentation because he was his own documentation. His confidence, his charm, his certainty, and the way he carried himself was like a man who'd seen things that you hadn't. You sprinkle in a little bit of jargon, you become just smart enough to become dangerous. It was very convincing because Keith was good at it. And this is where the story really starts to blur, where that line between the man and the myth gets thin enough to eventually just disappear. And the deeper you go, the harder it becomes to separate what actually happened from what Keith needed everyone to believe. And in my mind, the only thing I can think of is Rex Kwanda. Like, that's how I envision this guy. He's like, and he is a loser because I go home to Starla every night. Forget about it.
He is. And the theme that I want you guys to pick up on is, you'll notice, okay, how do I say this? I work with the military population, and the military population it has its own language. Outsiders, you don't really know that language unless you're in it. And people can try to use that language, but it doesn't take long for a real, like, for example, a real Green Beret to be like, bullshit. So you'll notice that this dude, Keith, as we go through this case, anytime that he's talking about this stuff, it's never around other special forces people. It's around laypersons, civilians, people who, when he would use, you know, the acronyms and the jargon, they wouldn't pick up on inconsistencies, right? Like you and I wouldn't pick up on inconsistencies the same way, you know, somebody who was actually a Green Beret would pick up on it. And so after, you know, he leaves the army and he's going through life talking about how he does all this cool stuff. And when you start getting into the 80s, Keith starts hovering on the edges of government and military adjacent work. And this is where, alongside his claims of his like super duper secret special ops undercover badass dude operations, right? He begins claiming that he's training guards to protect U.S. interests in Haiti. And he says he works in some capacity with the Thai military. And at the same time, he's trying to build a business identity. He opens a paintball shop called Idema Combat Systems, and then that expanded into paramilitary style clothing and supply operation under the same name. So this dude, so Chelsea, he is pivoting, but very aimlessly. He is just kind of going in a million different directions. If this doesn't stick, he's just like throwing spaghetti at a wall.
Right. Well, and hold on, like a quick little side note, he actually did really well in this paintball industry. Like there are people who still talk about his influence today. So I mean, the guy did have some skills. Like he wasn't completely full of it. But
right.
You just we'll see.
And that's the thing with this guy is there's always enough truth to make you question the lies that he's telling, right? And that's the hard part. Okay, so at some point in the 80s, Keith Idema and his friend Thomas Bumback developed a counter-terrorism training operation called the Counter Group, which was in upstate New York. Like, that's what I mean. He opens a paintball shop and now he starts this counter-terrorism training operation. And the wildest thing about this guy is people always buy into it. So Keith and his buddy Thomas, they advertised that this was a place where they would teach assault tactics, security training, and counterterrorism expertise. And the program even allegedly attracted high-profile clients, including President Reagan's son, Ron Reagan Jr. But the problem is, and this is the core theme with Keith Idema, is the legitimacy of this is foggy at best. Public records don't always line up with like company names that Keith used, and some entities appeared inconsistent across states and years. So again, Keith's world starts to look less like a stable career and more like a rotating set of titles, logos, and claims that are really hard to pin down. And thus, the beginning of the myth surrounding Keith Idema. He is building a persona off of what appears to be legitimate endeavors, and then, because he never stays in one lane, he pivots into his biggest, most explosive claim yet.
In the early 1990s, Idema makes one of his biggest claims yet, and that is that he trained Lithuanian police forces right after Lithuania broke away from his number one enemy, the Soviet Union, and Soviet control. And while he was there, he said he uncovered something massive. He discovered an underground black market dealing in backpack-sized nuclear weapons, the kind he believed could be sold to terrorists. Right? Now, let's pause, because this is where Keith's storytelling stops being dramatic and starts being useful. There is no faster way to manufacture credibility than to claim you've seen something global, terrifying, and classified. Suddenly, Keith wasn't just a dude with a ton of supposed, really awesome military experience. He's now a guy with serious geopolitical intel. Idema claimed he briefed U.S. officials about these alleged weapons. He said that in December 1992, he met with a Pentagon official named Timothy Conley about the threat. He also claimed that the FBI wanted access to his Lithuanian sources. And according to Idema, of course, he refused. Not because he didn't have names, but because he said the FBI had been infiltrated by Russian agents, which sounds insane, but kind of also perfect, because it does two things at once. It makes him look like an insider, and it gives him a built-in reason why they can't prove anything. The story becomes self-protecting, unfalsifiable, untouchable. But once you start talking about nukes and intelligence networks, you're not just, quote, a guy with an ego anymore. You've become a potential problem. And where the claims were real or not, the attention they drew was. And then the chaos stops being theoretical.
I want you guys just to think about that for a second. And how crazy it is. He says that he goes to Lithuania and he's training, their military or their police over there. While he's there, he finds out about, this threat and tells the government, and the government's like, well, give us your resources. And he's like, nah, I can't, because I'm pretty sure that, there were Russian spies, because the FBI was infiltrated by Russian agents. This is what I'm talking about, is you will find that he gets away with stuff like this for years and years and years and years and years. Okay, so after the whole Lithuania thing, this is where Keith Idema really starts to unravel, and he begins, believe it or not, racking up some serious criminal records. Arrests and charges ranging from impersonation type allegations, fraud, assault, and property related offenses. We're talking about over 30 charges. By 1994, it did finally catch up to Keith in a major way. Of all those charges, he had never been convicted, but finally on this one he was, because this charge was wire fraud. And he had defrauded companies out of more than $260,000. And because of this charge, Keith Idema is sentenced to prison in order to repay the money. So now the man who spent his adult life chasing the hero identity is officially a federal inmate. And this is another thing that I wanted to point out, and there were too many places to put this throughout this case. But everywhere you turn with Keith Idema, he is suing people. So when he went to prison, he tried to sue the FBI. He tried to sue all of these other people. Literally everywhere he goes, he is suing people. It's nuts. So he's in his prison time. He is making all of the enemies with the prison employees in the system. But the inmates love him, right? Because he's like the underdog, victorious hero or whatever. But while he's in prison, he ends up meeting a woman. He gets a pen pal. And her name is Victoria Running Wolf. And in case you're like me and was today years old when you learned about this, let me tell you that there is a massive prison pen pal community. Okay? Didn't know that was a thing. I knew it was a thing, but I didn't know that you could take out ads and everything like that. It was kind of nuts. So even though Keith had never met this woman, he begins corresponding with her. And over the course of his 3-year prison sentence, their relationship turns romantic. They were both dog lovers, and they started building a business idea together. the ultimate pet resort. And it was a pet hotel in Fayetteville, North Carolina. And so when Idema is finally released from prison, he and Victoria end up marrying, move to Fayetteville, and open a pet resort. And I know at this point, it kind of feels a little bit like whiplash, because how do you go from like training special forces in Central and South America and Eastern Europe to getting convicted for wire fraud, and now he is opening a pet resort, right? Like, nuts, right? But that's the thing with Keith Idema. He doesn't have just one identity. He has like a Rolodex of rotating identities. Whatever serves that moment, whatever keeps him in motion, whatever keeps him feeling important. And then history hands him the moment that he has been waiting for his whole life. September 11th of 2001.
For those of us who are old enough to remember, after 9/11, America didn't just grieve. They really panicked. The country became obsessed with one question, and that was, how do we stop it from happening again? And when a society is terrified enough, people polarize into roles. And you kind of get this formation of the rescuers, the perpetrators, and the victims. Most people don't choose consciously, which is kind of the weird thing about societal shifts. They drift towards whatever makes them feel less helpless, or maybe sometimes more in control. And for Idema, he knew exactly which role he wanted to be in. And I imagine that you guys are probably starting to figure this out as well. And 9/11 for Keith Idema was a turning point. I feel like this guy has had a lot of turning points, but this one was kind of like the mother lode of turning points. This was the turning point of turning points. Despite having a house and a wife and a stable life, and he was actually making some good money, right? Like, he was really adapting to a bit of normalcy, if you will. When 9/11 happened, Keith was consumed by a rage and a purpose that would propel him into this next phase of life. He reportedly said words to the effect of, "I'm going to kill every GD one of them until I drop dead," meaning anybody associated with the Middle East Taliban Association, right? And Victoria, knowing his history, knowing his intensity, put it simply, "My husband decided to go over to Afghanistan and hunt the bad guys." And that right there is the hinge. Because when a man with a documented history of fraud, a pattern of exaggeration, and a deep hunger to be seen as elite decides he's going to enter a war zone and play hero, like literally play a game where he is the hero, this is exactly where Keith Idema stops being a guy with a messy past and starts becoming something else entirely. A man who inserts himself, is not asked, in fact is usually kind of told not to, but chooses to forcefully insert himself into history. Because after 9/11, Afghanistan wasn't a country on the other side of the world. It was the epicenter of America's fear, rage, and ultimately obsession. It was where the public imagination went to look for monsters, where certain people went to look for meaning. And Keith didn't want to watch the war unfold. He wanted to be in it. But there was a problem, right? And that problem was Keith Idema wasn't officially invited into anything. He wasn't in the military. He wasn't working as a federal contractor. He had no orders, no authority. But really, that didn't stop Keith from doing what he always did. When the system didn't give him what he thought he deserved, he did it himself.
And this is where, in my humble opinion, where shit just gets crazy. So Idema, right? Keith Idema calls up his buddy, Gary Skirka, who was a National Geographic television producer, and he had met Skirka when Idema was in prison. And so Keith asked his buddy Gary if Gary wanted to document some humanitarian work about going over and doing in Afghanistan. And so Gary was like, hell yeah, let's do it. So in October of 2001, just, fresh after 9/11, Gary and Keith literally set out for Afghanistan. Like, what? This dude talks to his friend, which shows his networking abilities, right? His friend, who's a National Geographic television producer, was like, hey, I want to do this humanitarian documentary. Let's go to Afghanistan. And they're like, sure. It's just nutso. So, needless to say, they're going into the center of chaos. I mean, we're literally in a war right now, and the trip was a mess straight out of the gate. When Keith and Gary Skirka reached Uzbekistan first, they were immediately detained because they didn't have any visas. Now, normal people would hear that and be like, oh, okay, we're done. Let's just go home. But obviously not Keith, okay? He somehow worked contacts in the U.S. government, and U.S. officials intervened to get them released. And this is the part that makes your brain just fry, Keith somehow obtains a letter from the U.S. Embassy in Uzbekistan that portrays him as some kind of official. So we have established that he doesn't actually have these, legitimate official positions or connections, but somehow gets this embassy signed letter. And that's just nuts to me. Whether Keith Idema had real backing or just enough smoke and confidence to look legitimate, we don't know. Either way, it worked. From there, Keith and Gary traveled to Tajikistan, where they linked up with 32-year-old cameraman and director named Neil Barrett. And now suddenly, this trip has quote-unquote purpose, a documentary. Keith attached himself to a National Geographic team planning to film a story about Ed Artis, a 56-year-old Californian who ran a private charity called Knight's Bridge International, which was an organization known for delivering humanitarian aid into some of the more dangerous places on Earth, right? So on paper, this looks like something noble. Aid deliveries, war zone relief, documenting human suffering, yada yada. But almost immediately, the people around Keith started realizing that Keith had ulterior motives to this. Even though Idema presented himself as someone delivering humanitarian supplies, what he was actually doing was wanting to be the center of attention while he was providing military supplies to Northern Alliance fighters. Okay? It doesn't take long for the situation to turn from uncomfortable to quite literally dangerous. On the fourth day of filming, Neil Barrett and Gary Skirka were near the front lines, positioned on a hill between Northern Alliance forces and Taliban positions when they began taking incoming fire. Skirka later described hearing the crack of artillery and then the sound you never forget once you've heard it, the whistle of something flying towards you. Then there was a shell hit. In a split second, thought his leg had been blown off. They had been attacked. Skirka was immediately evacuated and ended up going back to the United States. And just like that, the documentary collapses. Not necessarily because Skirka went back home, but because Ed Artis refused to be involved in any film that included Keith Idema. He was like, no, absolutely not. This dude's crazy. He's got a temper. I don't like it. Keith's first real foray into Afghanistan ends not with heroism, but with people wanting him gone.
After several weeks, by December 20, I'm always wanting to say 2021 or some variation of 2020. After several weeks, by December 2001, Keith finally makes his way into eastern Afghanistan to Tora Bora. And if that name rings a bell, it should. This was the mountain region where Osama bin Laden and hundreds of al-Qaeda fighters were believed to be hiding in the cave networks and rugged terrain. It was one of the most high-profile, chaotic moments of the early war. Keith arrived calling himself Jack, building a persona in real time. At Tora Bora, Keith, who's now being called Jack, Jack starts networking, and he does this quickly. He makes contacts with journalists who are desperate for access, desperate for information, desperate for someone who sounds like an insider, and Jack is more than willing to play that role. He presents himself as, again, this special force type operator, the kind of man who knows things, sees things, and can explain the war from the inside. For reporters and authors trying to make sense of chaos, Jack quickly becomes a very valuable asset, or so they think, right? One of the people he connects with is Robin Moore. And so I think you guys remember at the very beginning of this thing, the movie that set him in motion was that Green Beret movie starring John Wayne. Robert Moore is the author of the Green Berets, and later in 2003 he produced or wrote The Hunt for Bin Laden. So Keith gets to meet his hero in real life, the author of the Green Berets, and he now becomes a source for Moore's book, The Hunt for Bin Laden, and even provides photographs used to illustrate it, including the cover photo. So yes, that is actually Keith Idema on the cover of The Hunt for the Bin Laden book that came out in 2003. And Moore's acknowledgments include a line thanking, quote, an anonymous Green Beret for day and night rewrites in the final months. That anonymous Green Beret is Keith, which is wild because what's happening here isn't just a man exaggerating his background. It's a man walking into a war zone and successfully positioning himself as credible to just everybody, to the embassy, to people documenting history. I mean, you can buy this book. It's wild. For the next year after 9/11, Jack, remember he's changed his name to Jack, travels through Afghanistan, building relationships with commanders in the Northern Alliance and continuing to insert himself into the story of the war. By March 2002, Washington Post reporter Susan Glasser met Jack at his house in Kabul. At the time, Operation Anaconda was underway, and this is a major U.S. and Afghan effort to encircle Taliban and al-Qaeda forces dug into the mountains. Glasser later describes Jack showing her an SUV loaded with boxes he claimed were medical supplies meant for Afghan forces. And the boxes were marked Fort Bragg, which is the North Carolina headquarters for the U.S. Special Forces, which just explains why people kept hesitating to challenge him. He seemed legit, and in a war zone, you don't have the luxury of questioning things too long. By 2002, Jack Idema had done what he'd been trying to do his entire life. He got close enough to war to appear to be the man he'd always claimed to be. He was the hero, the insider, the guy who knew a guy, the important guy. He had journalists listening with cameras nearby. He had all the bells and whistles of what he wanted in that war zone area. But the problem with a manufactured identity is once enough people buy it, it really starts to feel authentic. It starts to feel real, even to the person selling it. And with that comes some really nasty consequences.
Yeah. I mean, it's just crazy. You know, I think Chelsea and I had looked up the statistic, not the statistic, but the fact around Keith Idema. And between October of 2001 and July of 2002, Jack Idema, because remember, he's going by Jack when he's in the Middle East, appears in over 1,000 U.S. newspapers, 250 TV shows. I mean, he was literally a Fox correspondent for a while, getting paid.
I was going to say, he was a guest, he was a commentator on Fox News.
Yeah, and 60 Minutes did a special. They came out and did a special with him. I mean, you can look it up, and it's all over the place. But in this kind of same vein, what's crazy is the journalists that worked with him over the years knew that there was something off with him, but they still humored him because he was a lot of times their sources to and from, especially like Tora Bora, because it was very dangerous and all of that stuff. But literally the journalists called him Mr. Potato Head because every time you would talk to him or a different journalist would talk to him, it was a different thing. He was CIA or he was Special Forces or something like that. And the other reputation that he started to get, which is leading us into this next huge part of this case, is he started to get a reputation for being violent. Like, there was a situation where he literally shot at a journalist who had interrupted him during a discussion. Like, shot at him with a whole gun because he got interrupted. And this is the kind of guy, right, that we're dealing with. I mean, he's just kind of lost the plot by this point. Okay. Now, again, by this time in 2004, Jack Idema is now creating his own world where he can live whatever he wants to be inside of it. The more time he spent in Afghanistan, the more he started acting like the rules didn't apply to him. Like, he wasn't a visitor in someone else's country, but the main character in the whole war. And after years of living in his own fantasy, this is where it just really starts to turn very dark in this Idema story. By the summer of 2004, Jack Idema wasn't just a loud American with a camera crew and a hero complex. He had crossed into something else entirely. In Kabul, Idema and his associates set up what was essentially a private prison. So he had rented some property with some colleagues of his, some associates, and basically turned it into a detention site. But the thing is it was operating completely outside of Afghan law and completely outside of any confirmed U.S. military or intelligence authority, meaning this was a total rogue operation. Idema claimed that he was hunting Taliban and Al-Qaeda suspects. He claimed he was running a counter-terrorism organization, and he gave it the name Task Force Sabre 7. and I'm really sorry, I'm not I'm not trying to be rude here, but it does sound like Task Force 7 Saber, like it's Street Fighters.
I was going to say, it sounds like when you have to pick a name when you go and play laser tag. You know, it's like what my 14-year-old would pick. He's like, I am Task Force Saber 7 Buttface. You know what I mean? Like, it just sounds, to me, I'm like, are we working with literally, like, did this dude compete in junior high? Are we working with a junior high brain? Because all of this sounds like every single junior high kid I talk to. And it's wild.
But I think it's no surprise to anybody here that what was happening inside this building was not counterterrorism. Afghan citizens were being held against their will, bound, hooded, and interrogated. Detainees being subjected to beatings, starvation, sleep deprivation, and humiliation meant to break them down. Some were reportedly suspended or restrained for extended periods of time. Others described being threatened with death. Mock executions meant to terrorize rather than to interrogate. So, and to be super clear, these are just random people that he thinks, because remember, he's not actually plugged into like these special forces operations. He's just kind of this rough and tough cowboy wannabe tumbling through Afghanistan and kidnapping Afghan citizens, holding them, torturing them, beating them in his own prison that nobody really knows about. It's just it's nuts. It's nuts.
Well, and it's one thing to be a one-man show, but the fact that he had people who were doing this with him. So, I mean, at this point, it's like he's created a cult. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many working angles on, like, what is this dude on? But again, he has other people who are torturing citizens, innocent people with him. Like, they are partaking in that. Luckily, in July 2004, Afghan authorities find out about this illegal rogue prison facility and they raid it. Inside, they found detainees that were bound and hooded, and the entire rogue operation collapses in real time. The prisoners were freed, and Idema and his team were immediately arrested. But the scandal exploded, not just in Afghanistan, but internationally. And the timing couldn't have been worse. This is only months after the Abu Ghraib scandal exploded in the public eye. The world was already hyper alert to the idea of detainee abuse. So when Afghan authorities found men restrained inside an unauthorized compound run by Americans, it obviously set off all the alarms. Idema's response was exactly what you'd expect. He doubled down. He insisted he wasn't a criminal. He was a sanctioned operative, a necessary man doing necessary, albeit crazy, work. But as the story hit the press, the U.S. government quickly threw, they threw him under the bus. Like, they were like, no, sir.
Quickness. Abu Ghraib had just happened, and then the U.S. was just like, nope, we don't know what.
They're like, 1, 2, 3, not it. Like, he does not belong to us.
Yeah.
Official statements made clear that Idema had no official affiliation with U.S. military operations, no authorizations, no legitimate oversight, no sanctioned mission. The man who had spent years trying to sound like this elite operator was now being publicly treated like he was what he really was. And that is a criminal and a liability. But I think more than that, they were calling him a fraud or a phony. And I think that was really the deepest cut. That would be my opinion, for someone to be like, you're just a little punk.
Yeah. Yeah. And when Idema was finally in custody, he tried to frame himself again as a government-connected operator. He pointed to recordings of conversations he said linked him to General Boykin's office, but again, those recordings were found to be inconclusive. He claimed to represent something called the U.S. Counterterrorism Group, which, depending on the source, was either a real organization or essentially kind of a brand he built himself. He also claimed that he had stopped assassination plots and captured terrorists, like did all of this wonderful stuff. But both U.S. officials and Afghan authorities publicly denied. I'm so sorry, but both countries, they're us in Afghanistan were not seeing eye to eye in the early 2000s, safe to say. But both countries saw eye to eye on this dude. They were just like, both of us were just like, no.
Like, have you ever been in a situation where you experience a kid lying and both, it's like the grandma and the mom are both like, we saw you do it, and that kid's like, no, it wasn't me. I mean, this is what I think of. I'm like, they might not have even been friends, and they both were like, oh no, you absolutely are lying.
I know. I just think it's hilarious in the most weird way that both Afghanistan and the United States can agree that no, we don't know who this dude is.
What is it? The enemy of my enemy is my friend, or something like that. So if they could just, I mean, it's yeah, they had a common enemy at that point. So behind door number 1, Jack goes back to the U.S., back to his pen pal turned wife, back to the dog resort, and they live happily ever after. Behind door number 2, he ends up in Mexico. Which one do you think we're going with? And if you said door number 2, you're absolutely used to the wildness that is this Wild Side podcast. Instead of returning to the United States. And the reason is because he feared being taken into custody on other charges. Idema disappeared into the kind of life that felt familiar to him, half reinvented, half escape. Idema traveled through places like Dubai and England before settling in Mexico. There he rebranded himself again, and this time as Black Jack, and ran Blue Lagoon boat tours out of the Baklavar on the Yucatan Peninsula. And for a moment, it almost sounds like the story is winding down, but it's not. But it is just not, because old Black Jack had some aces up his sleeve. Jack quickly spiraled into multiple failed business ventures, almost daily orgies with men and women and drugs. Lots and lots, it's not funny, but lots of drugs. According to Idema's former girlfriend, Penny Alisi, Idema even infected her with HIV while allegedly knowing he had the disease. I mean, guys, this is just turning so bad in so many ways. An allegation that drew attention in both Mexican and American media. She also claimed Idema told her he'd had 9 wives, though only one had been legal. Okay, here we go. When Idema died, he did finally die. When Idema died, he was reported to have no immediate survivors. Even in the aftermath, the myth kept going. In his father's obituary notice, Idema was described as, quote, a Green Beret with an organization involved in the war on terror, which is almost poetic in the darkest way, because that's the story of Jack Idema, start to finish, right? It's a man who kept rewriting himself faster than reality could catch up. And in the end, he didn't get the hero ending he spent his whole life chasing. He just kind of vanished into his own legend.
Yeah. It was super sad because he was released in 2007 and he passed away in 2012. So, just in those, how many years is that? 5 years? He died within 5 years. He just totally spiraled into just literally orgies, addiction, violence. It was just crazy. Jonathan Keith, or Jack Idema's life, is quite obviously a cautionary tale. Not just because he was a hot mess with a massive ego, but because of what happens when someone convinces themselves that they are the hero. Once you believe you're the good one, rules stop feeling like rules and just start feeling like little obstacles that you need to deal with. And that's when people justify harm as necessary or protection or justice.
And I think zooming out, this is really what fear does when trust collapses. So hear me out on this one. People stop believing systems work, so they build their own, right? Like they don't believe that the system is providing for their needs or the system is running in a way that it should be. And so then they just build their own. But justice without oversight, that isn't justice. It's just a moral power trip. And the scariest part is the person doing it, they won't think that they're dangerous. They'll think that they're needed, And also 9 times out of 10, they will bring other people onto that sinking ship with them.
Yeah. And that is the wildest case of Jonathan Jack Idema. Okay. There's a whole lot there. But there is this really awesome documentary that you guys need to go look at or watch. And it's called, oh goodness, what is it called? It is called The King of Stolen Valor by Oki's Weird Stories. It's about an hour and a half long. It's an awesome documentary. And it gives so much more detail than what we have here. It just goes on and on and on and on and on. And I was like, I don't have the energy for this.
Well, and so obviously check it out because number one, it really is a very entertaining, very well put together. But watching this guy is so, I would bet that you are going to watch this guy in action because there's tons of footage of this, you know, Jack Idema, whatever we want to call him. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I know this guy, right? Like not literally, but I'm like, I know somebody who literally is this guy. And it's kind of crazy because there was one person that I had in mind when I was watching this. And I was like, this person has always kind of given me some weird vibes and I couldn't quite put my finger on it. And watching this guy, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's him. So it almost kind of validates some of these red flags. And Bailey and I talk about this so often, but you know, we were raised in a household where there was no manipulation allowed. Like we couldn't manipulate our parents against each other. If we tried to pull a fast one over our parents, it ended up in literally, like I tried to do that with my dad one time, and it ended up with him being like, you better have your stuff packed up by the time I get home. Like if you're gonna threaten to like, oh, I'm gonna go live with Grammy because maybe we just don't understand each other in my like 17-year-old world of knowledge. I mean, Dad was just like, go. I'd get out then. You know, if you're gonna play big games, then this is your big prize.
Then win big prizes.
Yeah. You know, Bailey tried to pull the same stuff.
Yeah, I tried to threaten my mom on calling CPS on her for some reason. And he pretty much, in so many words, was like, I'll call him for you. Don't come home crying, calling me when you got people hitting you and touching you in these foster homes. I mean, literally. And I don't know, but they were just like, don't play it with me.
And it really, Bailey and I had a conversation about this, and we're like, is it this nature versus nurture debate? Like, because Bailey and I really are, like, I'm going to kind of toot our own horns. You guys might not think that we're like the coolest people ever, and we're not, but we do have some pretty charismatic sides to us. And we can kind of talk with and chew on the fat with anybody. Our dad is an amazing salesman. I mean, we've kind of been in those environments, right? But we always had somebody who was like, don't fly too close to the sun with your glued on wings. Like, we had parents that were always like, you're getting a little big for your britches and we're going to bring you down a bit. So in this charisma that we learned, we also learned like the value of humility. And that's what I was asking Bailey. I was like, do you think that maybe he just never had somebody in life who was like, no, you're not that guy. And by the time he did have it, it was almost too late. Like he had been doing it for so long. I don't know. It really does make you think. Or do some people, it doesn't matter. You can put up a full-blown C4 loaded barricade saying, no, sir, you're not going to pass. And they're going to figure out how to go around it. I don't know. But the dude is a lot.
He's a lot. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there was, diagnosis for personality disorder in there somewhere, because it's a lot. I'm exhausted after just reading about him. I couldn't imagine being in his presence for like more than an hour.
But I mean, guys, really, to sum this up, he was able to lie himself into embassies into Fox News, like TV shows, and then sued Fox News when Fox News didn't want him.
Everybody. He sued his own dad.
Huh?
He sued his own father.
Oh, yeah. Sued his dad.
When he was in Mexico because he wanted his dad's money and build it like a building or something. And his dad's like, no, I'm not doing that. And he tried to sue him. He's just a little man with a big temper.
But Bailey, I mean, he was able to achieve some pretty, I'm not going to call it amazing as in like a good connotation, but he was able to achieve some amazing things.
Yeah, just imagine if he had actually done it not using stolen valor.
I know, we talk about that all the time, what these people could have accomplished if they'd have done the right thing. So,
well, thanks for hanging out with us, you guys, through this wild and crazy ride.
And we'll catch you on the wild side.
Bye, guys.
Later, Gators.